Hey, this is God's drowsiest dreamer, and this is a Reddit no sleep story for you to maybe kick back and relax to. Just, kick your feet up and let me try to expand your mind. Open your ears and open your eyes, maybe as well. Open your eyes to how you always need to check your moving boxes by Toaster Oven on r/nosleep. Moving is always a disaster, and I've moved plenty of times. When I was younger, my dad was in the military, and every year I was enrolled in a new school, a new town, a new state, or even a new country. And now I'm 27, and I used to work in government. In September of 2021, I had to uproot my whole life in Los Angeles to move across the country to a small rural town in Vermont. And of course, the move got off to a rocky start. The first morning of my trip, I set out to drive across the country. Alone as a 27-year-old female, may I add. My camper van and storage trailer I was renting got 2 flat tires. Of course, I thought nothing of it. Rotten luck, I suppose. Blew up the tires and drove off. And as the sun began to set, I pulled off to my first campsite, somewhere in Utah. And I've always loved camping since I was a kid. So I picked the best spot, got set up, made sure to lock my doors and windows, and of course pulled the shades. As a woman traveling alone, you have to be super cautious, so I barricaded the door as well. And the first night I slept like a baby. I woke up around 9 and was preparing to leave, but that's when things got a little bit strange. I stepped outside to unplug and prepare for travel, when I noticed a dingy brown envelope taped to the side of my van. I should have left it there, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside were 2 Polaroids and a scrap of hair, scarily close in color to my hair. The Polaroids were worse, pictures of me sleeping through the skylight of my camper. I shuddered and quickly got back into my van and drove off. I hoped I left whoever was stalking me at the campsite. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Every time I stopped to camp, I would wake up to a dingy envelope. Every time I stopped to camp out for the night, I would wake up to a dingy envelope outside of my trailer. A different trinket inside and brand new Polaroids. The trinkets ranged from anything from hair, garbage, or even my ring that I lost the first night of my trip. The Polaroids, however, got much, much worse. Each Polaroid was from a different angle, or taken from a different window, until one sent ice-cold chills down my back. This one was from inside my van. And that's when I called my boyfriend Ben, who was already in Vermont, preparing our apartment for the move-in. I was still miles away from my destination, somewhere in the middle of Pennsylvania, so he told me to drive to his family's home only about an hour away in upstate New York. So of course I listened. He made the plan that I would stay with his family while he drove down from Vermont to help me finish the rest of the trip. But once I got to Ben's parents' home, we decided it would be best to call the police and have them search our van and trailer for any evidence or anything that may explain the odd envelopes. but sometimes ignorance is bliss. I wish I could go back in time and never find out what the cops found when searching for the cargo. In the cargo holder in the back of my trailer. In a rather large moving box that I thought held my kitchen set, they found a man in about 20 dingy envelopes. He was arrested and detained, but I will never forget the manic smile on his face and the lack of pupils in his eyes. And he made eye contact with me before he was dragged away in the cop car. Later that night, as things were settling down, an officer came to debrief the case with me. It was lucky I stopped when I did, because after the man and the small amount of possessions he had on him were searched, the police found a rather large knife, bottle of strong sleeping pills, and horrifically, even more Polaroids of me sleeping, eating, and even worse, in the shower. As the months moved on, I got settled into the new sector of my job, and I began to think less and less about the man and the envelopes. He wasn't sent to jail and was proclaimed clinically insane, which made me feel a lot worse about the whole situation. I still have nightmares about his eyes, wide and pupilless, like no pupils. But moving on, a few weeks ago, Ben, now my husband, all good for you, Ben and I moved down to Maryland, about 30 minutes away from DC. I've begun to settle into my new job and workspace, but I don't think I'll ever forget this man, especially since my new coworker has that same manic grin and pupilless